Well, hello and welcome to another video by Financial Learning. On today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Bitcoin mining stocks, and we're going to be ranking them based off of their short interest position with respect to free float. On top of that, we're also going to take a look at the overall Bitcoin mining sector and just as a whole, how are they being shorted? So if you haven't already, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and let's get right into it. All right, rounding out the bottom of our list, this is number 14. This is BitFUFU, that is ticker symbol FUFU. They were ranked number 13 last week when we took a look. Also, I'd like to point out something before we jump into these numbers. I have the graphs set on a 7-day range, so you can take a look and see what the overall scores or what those metrics were 7 days ago. So for instance, for BitFUFU, 7 days ago, the short interest percent of free float was just sitting at 1.68%. It has then grown ever so slightly to 1.69%. We will talk about that live short interest data, and that is going to be that Friday's short interest percent of free float. But for now, let's go ahead and continue on. Looking at the days to cover, it's sitting at 1.82 days with a utilization score of 23.49%. And the short score at 55.3. As I mentioned, here's that live short interest data, and this is of that Friday data. It is sitting at 1.66%, so there were some shares returned on Friday. Taking a look at the interactive broker short availability, there was a total of 50,000 shares available at the last reporting at a cost to borrow at 30.53%. Coming in at number 13 on our list, this is CANG, that is ticker symbol CANG. They have a short interest percent of free float at 2.35%. Taking a look back 7 days prior, it was at 1.42%. So there has been an increase of short interest percent of free float for CANG. Looking at that days to cover, it is at 1.71 days, and the utilization is sitting at just 34.42%. with a short score of 47.93. Looking at the live short interest percent of free float, again, you can see some shares were returned. It is still sitting at 2.31%. And the interactive broker shorts availability has 45,000 shares available at last reporting for a cost to borrow of just 0.63%. So for CANG, you can see if you were to compare 7 days ago short interest percent of free float with that Thursday short interest percent of free float, it has grown by 65.49%. So that is a rather large jump. Even though the total overall percent is still rather small, it does show a significant increase in the amount of shares being shorted. Coming in at number 12 on our list, this is HIVE Digital Technologies, that is ticker symbol HIVE. They had a short interest percent of free float at 3.88%. And 7 days prior, it was just sitting at 3.14%. So it does show about a 23.57% increase in that short interest for this specific stock. Looking at days to cover, it's sitting at just 0.67 days, and the utilization sitting at 31.48%, and a short score of 45.41. Looking at that live short interest data as of Friday, the live short interest percent of free float was at 3.73%. So some of those shares were returned. Looking at the interactive broker shorts availability, there were 3.1 million shares available at last reporting for a cost to borrow of 1.23%. Coming in at number 11 on our list, this is Iris Energy, that is ticker symbol IREN. They had a short interest percent of free float at 7.27%. And if you were to look 7 days prior, the short interest was actually slightly higher at 7.45%. Looking at the days to cover, it is sitting at just 0.85 days, and the utilization score sitting at 63.22%. Let me stop for a second and explain exactly what that utilization is. So when you look at the total number of shares available to be lended, you want to look at that number compared to the number of shares being borrowed for shorting, and that is the utilization percentage. Looking at the short score, it's sitting at 58.25. Looking at live short interest data, and this is as of that Friday, it is sitting at 7.43%. So it does show a slight increase in shares being shorted as a percent of free float. Looking down at the bottom at the Interactive Broker shorts availability, you're going to see 7.4 million shares available at last reporting for a cost to borrow of just 0.46%. Coming in at number 10 on our list, this is CIFR, that is ticker symbol CIFR. They had a short interest percent of free float at 9.48%. Looking back 7 days prior, it was sitting at 8.83%. So it does show an increase on short interest percent of free float by a total of 7.36%. Looking at the days to cover, it is sitting at 2.15 days with a utilization of 28.37%. Short score at 58.51. Looking at that live short interest percent of free float, this is as of Friday, it is sitting at 9.35%. So there were some additional shares returned. Looking at the bottom at Interactive Broker shorts availability, last reporting showed 2.7 million shares available at a cost to borrow of 0.41%. Coming in at number 9 on our list, this is HUT8, ticker symbol HUT. They had a short interest percent of free float at 14.05%. Taking a look 7 days prior, it was sitting at just 10.39%. That does show an increase of short interest percent of free float of 35.23% compared to just 7 days ago. Looking at that days to cover, it's at 1.45 days and a utilization. Total number of shares shorted divided by the number of shares available for lending comes in at 33.36% with a short score of 60.41. Looking at that live short interest data with respect to free float on Friday, it was sitting at 14.08%. So a slight increase in the number of shares being shorted. Looking at the Interactive Broker shorts availability, last report was 1.3 million shares available at a cost to borrow of just 0.52%. Coming in at number 8 on our list, this is Bitfarms, that is ticker symbol BITF. They had a short interest percent of free float at 16.01%. Looking back 7 days prior, it was sitting at just 15.32. So there has been a slight increase on shares being shorted with respect to free float. It's a total increase of 4.5%. Looking at the short interest number of days to cover, it is at 1.37. Looking at the utilization score, it's sitting at 100%. So for all the shares that are available for loan, 100% of those shares are being loaned for shorting purposes. Looking at that short score, it is at 71.57. Live short interest data as of Friday was sitting at 15.93%, so a slight reduction in number of shares being shorted with respect to that free float. Taking a look at that Interactive Broker shorts availability, last report showed 0 shares available, so there is nothing as far as cost to borrow. Coming in at number 7 on our list, this is CORZ Scientific, that is ticker symbol CORZ. They had a short interest percent of free float at 18.47%. Taking a look 7 days prior, it was sitting at just 17.62. That is an increase of 4.82% with respect to the number of shares shorted 7 days ago. Looking at that short interest days to cover, it's at 4.13 days and a utilization at 32.97%. That gives a short score of 65.68. Looking at that live short interest data with respect to free float, that shares short is sitting at 18.66%. That does show a slight increase in number of shares shorted as of that Friday reporting. And taking a look at the Interactive Broker shorts availability, there were 9.6 million shares available for lending at a cost to borrow of 0.37%. Coming in at number 6 on our list, this is RIOT Platforms, that is ticker symbol RIOT. They had a short interest percent of free float at 20.64%. Taking a look 7 days prior, it was sitting at just 18.79. That is an increase in short interest percent of 9.85% comparing 7 days prior. Looking at that days to cover, it's at 1.99 days with a utilization of 47.43%. and a short score of 67.21. Looking at that live short interest data as of that Friday with respect to a percent of free float, it is at 20.65%. That is just a slight uptick compared to Thursday's reporting. Taking a look at the bottom here at the Interactive Broker shorts availability, there were 1.3 million shares available for lending with a cost to borrow at 0.3%. Coming in at number 5 on our list, this is terawulf. That is ticker symbol WULF. That a short interest percent of free float at 22.25%. Taking a look 7 days prior, it was actually at 22.67%. So there was a decrease in shares being shorted with respect to free float compared to 7 days prior. It's a negative 1.85% drop. Looking at the days to cover, it is at 2.19 days and utilization sitting at 57.88%. Short score is at 68.09. Looking at that live short interest data, with the percent of free float, the shares being shorted is sitting at 22.62%. That is an increase compared to that Thursday data. Looking at the Interactive Broker shorts availability, last reporting shares available was 4.7 million and the percent for cost to borrow was sitting at 0.6%. And coming in at number 4 on our list, this is CleanSpark, ticker symbol CLSK, that had a short interest percent of free float at 24.92%. Taking a look 7 days prior, it was sitting at 24.48%. So there has been a slight increase in number of shares being shorted with respect to free float. Looking at the days to cover, it is sitting at 2.01 days. And the utilization, the number of shares being shorted compared to the total number of shares available for lending, it's at 76.58%. The short score for CleanSpark is sitting at 70.63. Looking at the live short interest data, and this is that short interest with respect to free float for Friday, it is sitting at 24.75%. So a slight decrease in number of shares being shorted. So some of those shares were returned on Friday. Looking at the Interactive Broker shorts availability, last reporting there was 1.2 million shares available at a cost to borrow of 0.77%. Coming in at number 3 on our list, this is BitDigital, that is ticker symbol BTBT, that a short interest percent of free float at 24.89%. Taking a look 7 days prior, it was sitting at 22.84%. So there has been an increase of short interest percent of free float of 8.98% compared to 7 days prior. Looking at the days to cover, it's at 1.95 days, and the utilization score sitting at 82.23%. And the total short score is at 69.69. Looking at that live short interest data, this is that short interest percent of free float as of Friday. It is sitting at 24.84%. So there were some shares returned on Friday compared to Thursday. Looking at the Interactive Broker shorts availability, last report showed just 150,000 shares available with a cost of borrow of 0.74%. And coming in at number 2 on our list, this is Mara Holdings. That is ticker symbol MARA. They had a short interest percent of free float at 26.53%. Taking a look 7 days prior, you're going to see it was at 26.38%. So there has been an increase on short interest percent of free float compared to 7 days ago. Looking at the days to cover, it is sitting at 1.41 days, and the utilization, total number of shares shorted compared to the number of shares available for lending, it is sitting at 71.07%. Looking at the short score, it is at 70.02, and the live short interest data as of Friday, we're looking at that short interest percent compared to free float, it is at 26.74%. So there were additional shares being shorted. There's an increase for that short interest percent of free float on Friday compared to Thursday. Looking at the Interactive Broker shorts availability as of Friday, again, this is last reporting at 1.4 million. Looking at that cost to borrow, it is sitting at 0.42%. And number 1 on our list, this is BTDR Technology, that is ticker symbol BTDR. They had a short interest percent of free float at a whopping 31.7%. Taking a look 7 days prior, it was sitting at 29.64%. That shows an increase of short percent compared to free float of 6.95 for a 7-day period. Looking at the days to cover, it's sitting at 1.76 days, and the utilization, number of shares being shorted compared to the number of shares available for lending, it's at 100%. That's right, all of the shares that are on lending right now are being sold short. Looking at that short score, it's sitting at 71.51. Now, live short interest as of Friday, it actually remained flat at 31.7%. Taking a look down at the bottom, this is from that Interactive Brokers shorts availability, last reporting at 3.1 million shares available at a cost to borrow of 2.05%. All right, and this is a new chart I wanted to share with you all. I went ahead and took a lot of the data from these 14 companies. I put them all on this spreadsheet. I also added in some information in terms of their free float and their last price as of the last trading day price for that bell close. That will be on that Friday. And if you want to take a look, FUFU, you can see they actually closed negative. So compared to Thursday close, they actually closed at 515. So any of these stocks showing a red color means that they actually reduced their price on that Friday trading day. And of course, green means these specific stocks increased their price on Friday. And then taking a look at the shares short, the short value and short percent, everything that you see here in red, these would be the stocks that had some of those shares being returned. So they had a reduction in terms of shares being shorted with percent to free float looking at Friday compared to Thursday data. And then one thing I thought it was really important to look at was going ahead and just summing up the total amount of short value. How much money is being shorted when you look at this entire sector, these 14 stocks? You're going to see it down at the bottom. That's $5.58 billion are being shorted for these Bitcoin mining stocks. That is a pretty intense amount of money, a very high value looking at that compared to their overall free float value. Their free float value is sitting at 27.74 billion. So if you do that quick math, you're going to see that as an overall Bitcoin mining sector, these companies on average are being shorted at 20.13%. All right, and that wraps it up for me, folks. I hope you enjoyed this quick little update on these Bitcoin mining stocks, looking at them in terms of the ranking for that short interest with respect to free float. And if you do think that this has any impact at all on the share price, please drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts about this. Do you think there's any kind of relevancy here? Do you think some of these companies are being over leveraged in terms of the short position, or do you think they're all in the right place? Go ahead and let me know your thoughts here in the comments. And with all that said, hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.